Good evening, everyone, or rather afternoon, I suppose. I'd like to, if we could please have quiet so we can start the council meeting. Welcome to the February 12th special meeting of council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk today will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. Today's special meeting of council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left for agenda items only. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question relating to an agenda item, would you please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. Members have been granted the authority to join meetings electronically, and I want to welcome Councillor Brown, who's with us tonight. Before I begin and ask Ms. Gurry about the introduction of any late items, given what happened a week ago in terms of some of the language that was used directed at city staff and others, and the noise and conduct of some members of the gallery, I'm going to ask politely right now that people reflect on the fact that this is a council meeting. This is not a public forum. This is not a place for people to demonstrate behaviors that are impolite or disrespectful of other people. And the reason for that is very simple. It is challenging for people to undertake any kind of work in the community, but it's challenging for people who wish to speak in a public place to be respected on occasion, and so it is important that we maintain order here tonight. So having said that, Ms. Gurry, introduction of late items.
Thank you, Your Worship. For late items this evening, we're just adding the report titled Alternative Approval Process Update and Next Steps, and that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We have the item on the agenda under reports, Alternative Approval Process Update and Next Steps. Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. Appreciate your attendance this afternoon on this special council meeting. I'll be very brief. We have one report on the agenda, and I'll go over the staff recommendation. As Council is aware, last Monday, so on February the 5th, we brought to your attention that we felt that there was a potential of an error occurring in the AAP process. At that time, Council directed us to obtain legal opinion and report back to you as soon as possible. So that was last Monday. By the time we went through those steps and provided the notice of the meeting, this was the earliest that we could find a time that worked, and so this is the opportunity for that meeting at the earliest time. So on your agenda today is just one report, a report from myself. I won't go into in detail, Your Worship, but I would say in general you've received the background information. I would say what we've found through the review is somewhat reconfirm what we had suspected last Monday, and that there is a problem with the notice. Specifically, it is on the date of the official notice on the 17th. We made the official notice and it provided it on our website and the newspaper, but unfortunately the actual forms were not ready until the next day on the 18th. So that is the in short summary, that's the nature of our problem here. As a result, the report before you has three recommendations. I'm recommending that Council 1, cancel the current AAP process, that you 2, abandon the Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 borrowing bylaw 2023 number 7362, and C, direct staff to return to Council with options to fund Phase 1 of the Nanaimo Operations Center. Your Worship, just speaking to that last item, we believe as staff that the Nanaimo Operations Center continues to be a priority for the community. It is a requirement, we believe, for the continuation of successful operations for our staff and for our purposes. So it's not that we are abandoning the project. But we do, under this recommendation, if supported by Council, we'll return to Council with options, all the options on how Council may wish to proceed with funding of that project. So certainly happy to take any questions from Council, Your Worship, but those are my recommendations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lindsay. Any questions before I call the delegations? Not seeing any. We have two delegations. The first is Sandy Bartlett. Mr. Bartlett, if you would come down, introduce yourself for the record, please. You'll have 5 minutes. When 4 minutes are up, I'll let you know you have a minute left.
Mayor and Council, my name is Sandy Bartlett. I'm an elector in Nanaimo, and I reside at 2233 Ashley Road here in Nanaimo. been a long time Nanaimo resident. I know a lot of you, and I'm here to talk to you about the AAP process generally. I know that I've heard the recommendation of staff, and I wanted to fill in some of the blanks for you. Since the last AAP process in November of last year, a number of citizens have gotten together and formed a society, and let me tell you what they've done. They've gone ahead and they've canvassed the areas, they've walked the streets of Nanaimo looking for people that aren't aware of the AAP process, and they found a lot of them. You probably know that by the number of forms that you've received in City Hall. The process itself, I still think the process itself doesn't lend itself to providing effective notice to the population in Nanaimo. One of the purposes of the AAP process that you are probably aware of is to ensure that effective notice is given, because what you want back from the people of Nanaimo is a realistic point of view of the citizens of Nanaimo. You're not going to get that unless you publicly notify everybody, or at least as many people as humanly possible, in the limited efforts that the city's made, all of which, by the way, meet the limits established by the province. But those are minimums. You can see with a reference in the provincial legislation, those are only minimum requirements. I think you could do a lot more to notify the people of Nanaimo. One of the things that I'd like you to consider carefully is actually sending a letter to each elector in Nanaimo. You've got the voters registration list. It shouldn't be hard for you to send out letters to everybody in Nanaimo containing one of the notices and a form for them to look at, because as you're aware now, you have to deliver the form or make the form available on the first publication, not on the last publication or the second publication. I sent you a letter about this on February 4th or February 5th, I think I delivered it, and I'm sure I'm going to get a written reply sometime. I haven't got one yet, but I'm sure I'm going to get a written reply sooner or later. So having said that the notice period that's being provided isn't really providing effective notice to the citizens, this is an old routine for me. I've been here now 3 times complaining to you as a citizen of this city that these notice provisions are only limited notice provisions. They're bare minimums, and you know they're not working. Okay, so I want you as a city council to respect the position that the people find themselves in. They're not being notified. They don't have any idea of the AAP process that you're bringing, and they don't know that you're borrowing their money. You have an obligation as the mayor and the city council to make sure that you're doing everything you can. Even the documents that are sent to you by the provincial government to be guides points to that. If you're confident that you're not reaching the people with the limited notice requirements that are prescribed as minimums, you can do more. And I'm suggesting that making the small expenditure to send out the notices is something that you should seriously consider, so that you could be sure when you tell people you have the approval of the citizens of Nanaimo to borrow the money that you want to borrow, you're sure that that's what you've actually got, rather than just a bunch of people that don't know what's going on.
1 minute, Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you. The second thing is that around the province, there's a bit of a trend starting that other mayors are not going to be using AAP processes. There's a fellow in Burnaby that you may have read about in the news from last year that refuses to use them. There's some issues now in the Capital Regional District that I'm now aware of, where some problems are being created with their AAP process. The process is, in my view, a dinosaur. It was created in 1962. Some of the legislation surrounding the AAP process is just as antiquated. These ideas that you're going to serve notice on the public with newspaper advertisements from a newspaper that only has a limited publication, reaching about 25,000 people in a city of 80,000 people, is just ludicrous.
If you could wrap up, Mr. Bartlett, your
All right,
minutes are
so you can tell, and I still expect an answer from my written letter to you. I'd like a written response. So the fact that you have problems with this AAP process yet again, and you have to cancel this
Mr.
process.
Bartlett, if you could wrap up your 5 minutes,
Okay.
please.
Indicates that the next process you should undertake is a referendum. A referendum is an up-down vote, gives the people of Nanaimo the opportunity to vote in favor or against borrowing the money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor I'm sorry. Look,
Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Bartlett, I have a question.
Mr. Bartlett,
I have a question for you.
Councillor Armstrong has a question.
Recognizing that this has mobilized a lot of people, will you be taking this further and going after the province to make amendments to the Local Government Act so that that has been removed?
You know, good question. I've been actually thinking about that for a while, but my focus has been on this particular topic because Nanaimo's near and dear to my heart. The province needs to do some revisions on its legislation. I agree with you about that. But, and this is a big but you recognizing that, you don't have to use the minimums that the province has laid on you as a council. You have a choice to make. Do you effectively serve your public that you serve as public servants, or do you just do the minimum required by the legislation? That's your choice as the council and the mayor. So, but yes, absolutely. I'm going to be pursuing this with the provincial government, and I've been gathering some material that I'm going to be sending on to them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please. The next delegation is Valentina Cardinelli. Ms. Cardinelli, if you can introduce yourself, and I think you know the drill, 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when the minute left, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Valentina Cardinelli, and in October, I had no idea what an AAP was. And when I first came up to speak, I said, how did we get here? And I'm still asking myself that question. I found out that Kaysan, a financial consultant, met with you and gave you a number that was larger than $160 million. And then you, as a group, brought it back to where you thought it was a reasonable place, which was about $160 million. Then you spent $8 million on experts without, do I have that figure correctly? I don't know, on experts without consulting the public. And I'm wondering how that happened. Who are they and what companies do they represent? And I also wanted to say that they were for the building, I think. And there's 18 places in Nanaimo that serve big vehicles, one of which happens to be VIU. I see great potential for this council to support VIU and use that building. In the meantime, give money to Public Works and help the public workers with better accommodations. That $8 million could have gone a long way to that. This is the first phased AAP in what I believe is all of Canada. I'm not certain on that. I think it's all of Canada. So this is precedent setting. And it's also in the very, very high numbers. In Kelowna, there was one that was over 200 million, and we might, in all reasonability, hit that. So this is precedent setting. And I'm really confused as to why you're so opposed to referendum. I really don't understand, because it's so much so that the threat of charging each household over $1,000 in our taxes was used. I think this might be the political equivalent of burning down Rome to save it from Napoleon. Like, seriously. This is not a small but vocal minority. There are people like Bill Manners and Ron Boleyn, ex-city councilor member Jerry Hong, Kip, for what it's worth, Corpan, like people who know a lot more about politics than I do are saying that they are also opposed to AAP. The BC Government.c, AAP for local government, says that if a thing is controversial, and this one is, because you can see there were bumper stickers made, for crying out loud, and if there's a significant contribution by taxpayers, which this one is, it might be more appropriate to go to referendum. I want to talk a minute about voter apathy and why this is a problem with the AAP. Because the AAP relies on voter apathy, meaning that if somebody does nothing or doesn't understand it, they assent to what's going on. And in my informal reaching out to the public during this many hours that I have volunteered for this, I have found a response to that. And I've heard many times that people feel that it doesn't matter what we do, that you're going to go ahead and do whatever you want to do. And as a matter of fact, the first time I came as a delegation, I was told, you may not like it. We were told, you may not like it, but that's the way it is. Your worship, I'm sorry, but you are also a public servant as well as being your worship. You are both. I hate the AAP, but I
You
love
have 1 minute
Nanaimo.
left. Thank you. I have a question for you. Where do you get the figure of $8 million spent?
I heard it
on this
from
project?
your presentation with the experts.
Mr. Sims, perhaps you can help here?
I'm at a loss where $8 million came from, Your Worship, I'm sorry.
I am too, and I read the material, so. Ms.
Okay, so
Cardinelli,
there's
can you-
confusion over that. I got that when you were speaking. I will find that specifically. Maybe I'm incorrect. If so, I apologize.
Thank you. Not seeing any further questions. Thank you very much. Council,
Thank
you
you.
have a recommended motion? Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Thorpe. Discussion on this? I'm not seeing any. I want to thank staff for their, Councillor Gesselbrock, sorry.
Thanks. No, I support the recommended motion. You know, I'm committed to, you know, fair and transparent, open and democratic process, and we had some issues with the AAP, and I think we need to, get together and sort out options for going forward and give some breather space and figure it out. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you to staff for the work that's been done on this and the presentation tonight in terms of the report, which sets out to the public what has happened. Much appreciated. And if there are no further questions or any discussion on the motion, motion's been moved. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not seeing any. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Any questions, Ms. Gurry? Thank you very much. Ms. Cardinelli, referendum question. I'm not I assume you're trying to relate this to the recommended motion that's been passed, but
Yes. Okay, so my question is, in a referendum, there's a yes or a no, and I'm falling in the middle because yes, I believe that Public Works needs funding, but I cannot stand by the project that's been proposed in phase 1 without knowing more the bigger picture, and I think that the sum is too much. So I am opposed to the project itself, but not to giving Public Works money.
I appreciate what you're saying, but this is question period. I'm wondering if you have a question that you're.
What do I do? How do I vote?
Ms. Cardinelli, that's the wonderful thing about a democracy. You will have to make that decision on your own.
That is true, but my vote is going to be no as it stands because there's no middle ground.
Thank you very much. No further questions. Motion for adjournment. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone.